cooperative. They all work independently.
No business contacts.
They're all autonomous. They all deal with buying their own stock, their own materials, starting from scratch and keeping it going.
Right. And do you have Italian business connections further afield?
Well, I have plenty of connections in business or otherwise. I don't always do business with them, but I do have I have connections everywhere, even in America, South America, South Africa. So I do.
That are central to the current business, more social.
More social, albeit most of us have done some form of business together. It's a social business. In the sense of that social first, and if there is any business that comes off, fine. But if it doesn't, we interact.
And have you dabbled in the new social networking stuff?
No, I find that very difficult. By social networking, I'm assuming you're talking internet and Facebook. No.
Although you do have
we have a website. Alec runs it. I have nothing to do with it. My daughter, my son, everybody else is on these things. I noticed now she's on Twitter, and I'm thinking to myself, no. I prefer talking to people. I find it easier, and also find out that speaking to somebody face to face lets you analyse whether they're telling you the truth or not. Whereas on a Facebook, anybody can tell you anything. And you don't know if it's fact or fiction.
Can I ask when the first of your children came along?
1989. Nico, he is 22 now. And then Francesca in 1996. And that's me. Time out now. No more. Finished.
So 2 Italian names.
Uh-huh.
Were you sort of determined to have that continuity and give them that Italian identity?
What my parents educated me in was finding a name, because I was one and the other, to find a name that could be translated easily to either language. Nico can, and so can Francesca. As I said to you at the very beginning, my surname is Toma, but in actual fact it's Toma. There's an accent over the A. So when I go to Italy and I give my daughter's name or my son's name, everybody can write it. Same with my name. So it is a problem for us. You have to think of both ways.
So how much of an Italian input have they had throughout their lives?
As much as my relationship with them could be. A wee bit less with my son, more so with my daughter, but that's only because of divorce circumstances. They all love Italian food. They like Italian clothes, they like Italian weather, wine, etc. So they are both reasonably influenced by the Italian way of life. But they certainly are not, Nico's particularly not over the top as far as influence, because our relationship wasn't quite so simple at the beginning.
You know if they feel part Italian?
That I don't know. I doubt it at the moment. Like me, that'll probably come later. Because me at my age, when I was younger, because all my friends spoke English, I never understood why I should speak Italian, and therefore I made a point of not speaking Italian. And I kept saying to everybody and my parents, well, my friends are all English, why should I speak Italian? But I understood every word they told me in Italian. I would just respond in English, which was wrong. But in those days I wouldn't know, because even now my kids, I can say one or two things to them in Italian and they'll understand. But they'll answer me in English.
Have they spent time with relatives?
Francesca has, Nico hasn't. He was when he was a baby, but after that, no. Francesca's been back and forward. In fact, if she wants, she could still go over there now and stay with family members. But now that she's got a job in London, that might be a bit difficult. But anyway.
So have they ever been part of the business here at all?
No. Nico worked in here for a short spell, but he's now doing aeronautical engineering up at Perth University.
In Europe now, are there incomers such as Asian families, restaurant owners over the last 20, 30 years?
Oh God, yeah. Asians and Chinese. Many of them. Not as much as in any city, but for a community of the population of Guruk, considerable amount. They're all over the place, to the extent that there are Italians, but they're not really thought of as Italian anymore. Because really the foreigners are now the Asians and the Chinese.
Do you have any...
There's now Romanians floating about as well.
Do you have any contact with any of the groups?
I've had a few dealings with Asians. Apart from business dealings, nothing. They have a very unusual approach to business, and I've learned through my first dealing, and that is that whatever happens, your deal's never done, even when it's done. And you're always better keeping your eyes wide open when you're dealing with them.
Do you feel any sense of empathy at all?
No.
From them as a incoming group?
No, purely because Italians are Europeans and therefore they integrated a lot easier. Asians and Chinese are not too terrible, but Asians go out their way to sustain their heritage, which is not wrong, but in defiance to the environment they're in. Whereas Italians can come over here, unless if he's colouring, an Italian will just blend into the background. Where an Asian, they have a culture which makes them feel that whatever happens, no matter where they are, they have to impose that. Now you can either believe it, like it, or dislike it, believe it or disbelieve it. I have my views on it. And I think that if you're in a country that you've adopted as yours, you have surely got to adopt their culture as well, and not try and impose yours. I mean, it's like me running around to everybody and saying, by the way, we've all got to eat Italian. Why? Because I am, and therefore you have to. Or, it's like they always say that in America, the biggest Scots are the Scots Americans. It's the same for the Italian Americans. They're more Italian than the Italians are. But that's different. That's a kind of wanting to keep your heritage. Whereas here it's slightly different. They don't want to dress the same. They don't want to approach the same. And I always try and think, if all these wars that we've got now with the Taliban and Iran and Iraq happened in the 30s as World War II, how Britain would have dealt with it. It would have been interesting. Would they have dealt with it the same way they dealt with the Italians and the Germans and the Japanese? Automatic internment? Or would they have gone through the PC way? Oh, by the way, hold on, you've lived here, so therefore you can't be a bad person, therefore we shouldn't really intern you. And if I do intern you, you can sue me later because of false imprisonment, even though I'm an Italian. And you think of the Italians that could have sued for the Anadora Star, or anything else that happened similar to that, because that's what would happen had the situations been inverted. I'm nothing sure, because now we've got people that are suing for false harassment, albeit they have been associated with various bodies which are illegal, but because they can't actually put 100% nail on it, false harassment, false this, false that. We've gone over PC. Anyway.
Some of the interviews I've done has seen how for a lot of the Irish immigrant community, how the Knights of St Columbus has been very central and, you know, one part of the social network there and the Masonic Lodge and Greenock. Have you had any sort of dealings with either of these bodies?
None at all. I know of the Knights of St Columba, I know of the Masonic Lodges. Strangely enough, my former headmaster allegedly was Grand Master in God knows how many lodges, but it was never something that bothered me, because I know in Italy the P2 exists, which is the Italian equivalent of the lodge, so to say, because there is a misconception that Masonic lodges are predominantly Protestant. Not true. They can actually be Catholic as well, as proved with the P2, because there was a relationship between the P2 and the Masonic Lodge. But there's also a difference between the Orange Lodge and the Masonic Lodge. So you can go to different, and the Knights of St Columba are yet another affiliation on the Catholic side, but I'm not a member of any of them, and I've always refused to join any of these kind of clubs and social networks, because I don't think they always benefit the communities. I'm not saying they're detrimental, just say they don't always benefit. I've always been a bit of a loner that way anyway in most things, so I don't see why I should change that.
So the business is looks like it's very successful at present. Would that be true to say?
Well, we're going through a good period, not a great period because we're in a recession. I think that in what little there's going around, we're getting a share of it. I feel that Guru can do a lot better, and so can we. We just have to bite the bullet and tighten our belts and monitor things as they happen. Kenny and I, my business partner, we've always had a philosophy: we don't enter competitions. Things like good shelves and good this and good that, purely not because we don't think they're worth it. Again, this is an old philosophy of my father's, which Kenny believes with as well. Our reward is not a certificate. Our reward is the customer coming through the door and enjoying what he has or she has, and enjoying what we present. Now, whether that gets recognised or not is immaterial. And our recognition is the fact that these people want to come through the door. That's enough recognition from me, and I'm more than happy with that. We don't always run it as a business because we like people, so sometimes we do things which don't always make money directly, but can make it indirectly by making people feel at home. Sometimes it's not. I mean, you have to just judge things as they come.
And what are your hopes or plans for the next few years?
Well, we're hoping that Guru does get some serious investment, because albeit tourism and leisure has gone abroad in many ways, we still believe there's a tourism and leisure market. Scotland's biggest industry is tourism and leisure, but we have the ability, with what we've got in front of us, with the river and all its ancillaries, the potential of bringing people to the area, which I would say that better than most places, yet it's never been capitalised on.
Are there any cruise ships or anything?
The cruise ships come in, but the people very rarely stay here. They either go off to Loch Lomond, to Edinburgh, to Glasgow, to Timbuktu. We occasionally get the odd person that's wandered down here, but they've got very little to wander for. If we had facilities to offer them, like a nice hotel, a nice harbour, proper sailing out of a proper marina, or various things like this, people would come. We have a natural bay in Carbo Bay which we need to develop. I'm not saying overly develop, I'm saying develop to a level that we can attract water sports, for argument's sake. But we need to be able to, I mean, we do have a great asset in the swimming pool. With the pool being closed this year, we noticed the difference. We lost a lot of custom because the pool was closed this year. Now that it's refurbished and it should be open this summer, I think we'll notice a big difference. But it is a proper saltwater heated pool, and there's not many like that about. In fact, I think there's only one other in Stonehaven maybe, or Stone. It's not Stonehaven. Yes, it's Stone. But you feel that we need to change our whole approach. I got involved many moons ago with a tourist training forum which was run by Scottish Enterprise, and it involved Inverclyde, Eastwood and Renfrewshire, and we had representatives from various elements. Now there was 2 representatives from the free trade, which was me and the manager of the Gantic, which was called who was called John Putman in those days. Gantic belonged to Stackies at that point. So we were our representatives, and the government, the Scottish government, had put together with the British government £18 million for tourism and training awareness for employees in our kind of industry. Now we worked on it for a year, we put a programme together, and this programme was presented. Now unfortunately I missed the presentation because I was abroad. At the presentation there was the representatives, the Deputy Provost of Greenock, and there was the Provost of Eastwood and whoever of Renfrewshire. I can't remember who they were, but anyway, allegedly they were there. And I thought this was hilarious because Jim Putman told me, he said, you would cringe if you'd been there. I said, why? Now, Paul, what was his name? Paul McGuinness spoke for 2.5 hours explaining the virtues of Scotland's industry as far as tourism goes and leisure, how much it plays a part in our national income, how much that life's changed, therefore we should direct towards this and we should educate our staff. 2.5 hours. The first member was Inverclyde Council member to stand up and speak, and she turned round in all her pearls of wisdom and said that
who's that?
Tony, and said that in her pearls of wisdom, if yous lot had put all these millions into the yards, we'd hae the yards new. And that was apparently her opening line. Now, that epitomises the sort of management, and I use the term very loosely, the sort of management that Inverclyde has had in the last 20 years. The forward thinking that we would like to believe in has not been there to drive forward the way we should have gone forward. Now I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, I'm going to say it's not happened to yet, but we're going in the right direction because we seem to be getting the right councillors in now who have lost this us and them stigma and judge things more on a value as opposed to Gourock doesn't need it. Because Gourock only has 2 councillors, we're always outvoted. So there's nothing it can push anything through other than common sense, and even common sense doesn't do it sometimes.
Do you know anybody from the Italian families that in the past that ever went into the shipyards?
Oh, loads did. Young of my generation, yeah, quite a few did. A lot of them served their time in the shipyards. They got their apprenticeships, either electricians, welders, plumbers, whatever. Some did. I won't say loads. Some did. We've had actually a member of the local Italian community that became provost for a while. He was also a Liberal councillor. So they did venture into politics as well. To the extent that probably they're more Scottish than they are Italian in many ways. I think I'm one of a handful of my generation who speaks proper Italian. After me, unless you've been born in Italy and brought up, I don't think there's any. Because most of the ones that speak Italian, when they do, tend to speak it with a dialect or an accent. I had the good fortune of being taught proper Italian.
Do you feel that Scots Italian identity is strong enough to be maintained over the next few generations, or do you think there'll be a big erosion?
I think the erosion, as big as it used to be, has gone. Right. Because the erosion came during my generation. What's happening now, which is possibly worse, is it's no longer an erosion, as more a switch on and off. Either the family's encouraged to identify with Italy or not. It's not a case of an erosion factor. And this depends on the generation. For instance, I know of one Italian family who the kids don't speak Italian, but are probably more Italian than the Italians. But that's because the father and the mother wanted strongly to keep the association. So they like going over to Italy, they like having holidays, the food, the drink, the way they dress, their identity is Italian. You know, it's all very simple in that faction, but the erosion is not happening anymore. It's not gradual, it's switch on or switch off.
There's certainly a large sort of presence in publications and on the web about Scots Italian.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I said before, we used to have Scottish Italian football games all the time. That's all gone. These things have just fallen by the way. And I think the pressures of life have made it difficult as well to organise, because once upon a time people used to go to these summer sports days, I used to say, were all shopkeepers. So they all arranged their time themselves, but since then the new generations are all working for big companies, IBM, National Semiconductor, Texas, HP. They can't take the time off they used to. They can't say, oh, well, I'll close the shop today, it's this, or I'll do that. It's not as simple. Life is not allowing them to have this flexibility that they used to.
Did you ever feel any influence or pressure to marry into a Scots Italian family?
Yeah. My parents were very realistic. I don't think there'd be any problem. You know, I think it's quite simple that I don't ever get don't, what was it, quote, my father turned out, don't buy the book we can enjoy a library. It was always a joke, but it was very true words, because I bought 2 books and I ended up handing them back in again.
Just before we finish off, is there any sort of aspect that's important to you, what we're talking about, identity, Scots Italian identity within the area, that I haven't touched on, that you haven't touched on?
Not really. I think you've covered most areas. I think your biggest one was the area around internment and everything else. I think that was a very mute, touchy point for a lot of people. It brought up a lot of issues, but as my father said, it was the only way it could have been dealt with at the time. And that legacy of pre-war and post-war, I was fortunate just probably to be born just after it was starting to get forgotten. 59 I was born, 52 I was born, so by the time it came to school age it wasn't as prevalent, and as I said, conscription died a death. So with that going by the way, everything else was just passing by very quickly, and it didn't become any particular issue. But there was, I feel that you talk to 1 or 2 people, they all remember the shops getting broken, the windows getting broken and all this kind of carry on. But it was a natural reaction. Now, we were fortunate that we had people that lived across the road that were in the army, who were friends of my parents, who looked after the windows and all this kind of carry on, and some weren't quite so lucky. You know, I don't know whether it had any, to me it had no lasting impression. It never bothered my father. It never seemed to bother my mother, so the rest of the Italians, I doubt it really took much thing on it.
And your mother's family side through Musselburgh, were there any negativities like that going on?
My mother, my nonna, my grandfather died in 1952. My nonna, my grandmother, she ran the business for a while, and all through everything, nothing was ever an issue over there. It was a smaller community. It was a fishing village. It was always tied up with a situation where the community always stuck together. They were always close. They were always warm. They never had any massive problems, right? And I've got notices and things. I've shown them to Kay, where the chief inspector of police for Midlothian was a friend of my grandmother's, and wrote a wee card to my wee Italian, and it's him dressed as catching a spy at Waverley Station, dressed as a police constable, then dressing the other one as catching a burglar, and then all the various things are all in different areas, where also there's another big picture frame that size where all the badges, all the army badges and all the soldiers' badges were all over the place.
No, it's okay. I'm just finished.
Okay.
Just a couple of minutes there.
All the badges of all the different forces and all the army that had all been around in Musselburgh at the time were all there. So I think the East Coast suffered less than we did here. But the West Coast here, which is big, was because of the boats, the Navy. It was a main. If you go and have a look at some of the pictures, the old pictures of Gourock next door, you will see the flotillas and the convoys that used to be here, ready to go away. And I think that's probably what influenced us more here than the other side.
What was the address of the premises?
It was a Central Cafe, and it was in High Street, Musselburgh.
Right. And is it still run
No,
as such?
it's no. There was two. My grandfather and my uncle were two brothers who married two sisters, and both called Tesoro. We had a cafe in Fisher Row on North High Street, which was still there until recently, until my uncle retired, and the other one was in the Central Cafe, which was in High Street, Musselburgh. Now the one in High Street, Musselburgh, when my nonna retired, we leased it out for a while, and then eventually we sold it to Pullers of Perth, and it's now, I believe, a woolen mill or something. But it's on a high street anyway, and it's one of the old. It's near the end, going towards east. And if you look, the bank's right in the corner of the high street. And if you look at it, this building's quite small, but you can tell it's very unique. It's one of the oldest buildings there. That was a cafe, and the dance hall was behind it. And the one in Fisher Row was exactly the same. Exactly the same. If you looked at them both, in actual fact, I can show you out here pictures. The dance hall, when they had a thing which said no intoxicated person be allowed in, and then if you go to the next one, it's got when my grandfather wanted to open a cafe in Cockenzie, and it's got the drawing, but you can see it's 1915, so it's all very Art Deco-ish and everything. It's really quite good. It's very good.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all from me.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. That's